You know, Funforge has always produced some absolutely stunningly beautiful games. Like Tokaido is a perfect example of a piece of artwork on the table. But they do some science fiction games, and they've done deck building, and now they've done Professor Evil and the Citadel of Time. But I'm not going to talk to Funforge about it. I'm going to go directly to the people who know everything about the game, and I'm going to talk to the designers, because why not? Guys, how are you two doing?
Oh, we're really well. Thanks, Becco. Yeah, it's
Yeah, no, it's going great. We're very happy to be here.
Well, I have to say, viewers, this is going to be a very quick interview, because you cannot see, but there's a queue of people who actually want to have their games signed. So we have to hurry up. It's all behind the camera. It's happening there, live. Stop there, go away. Tell me about the game. What is the Professor Evil and the Citadel of Time all about?
It's a co-op game. You play a team of plucky adventurers who have to rescue the treasures that the professor has stolen. He's a time traveler. He's stolen them throughout time, and your job is to rescue them before he locks them away forever. And so actually, if you want the elevator pitch, it's Forbidden Island meets Scooby-Doo.
Okay, that is the first floor elevator pitch. Now give me the fifth floor elevator pitch. Tell me a little bit more about that.
What next?
well. So essentially, each character has their own personal deck of cards, which will determine their own special powers. So they each have 6 unique cards for their own. And essentially, in the mansion, there's several rooms, and there'll be 3 treasures out at any point. And the players are taking simple actions to either move to different rooms, to deactivate traps. And once you've deactivated a certain set of traps, you'll be able to rescue one of the treasures. At the end of every turn, unfortunately, of course, the professor will also do something. And the professor is actually controlled by rolling 3 dice. And these dice together will determine how the professor either moves around the castle, he'll close doors behind him, he'll reset traps that you've carefully turned off. And if he meets you, he'll actually kick you out of the castle, out of the Citadel, and you have to come back in. So the idea is essentially to try and, deal with whatever the professor's doing at the end of each round, and hopefully rescue 4 treasures by turning off these matching sets of switches before the professor locks the treasures away. Where essentially each turn, time counts down on the sort of deadline at which, after a certain amount of time, a particular treasure will be stowed away forever, and you've lost the opportunity to rescue it.
Now that sounds a lot simpler than I'm sure it is. How does the game become involved with the players? What else is there to it?
It's a game where teamwork is very important. I'd say even more so than maybe other cooperative games, or especially so in that you have a limited number of actions each turn, and you also get to use one of these special powers from your deck each turn. So because as you play, you'll get a sense of what your character's good at, and other people will get a sense of what their character's good at, and you really have to think about, okay, I have 3 actions now, how can we put our turns together to rescue this treasure, because often it takes many actions put together to rescue that one treasure. And you also have to react very tactically to whatever the professor's doing at the end of each turn. So I'd say really the interesting part is you have these amazing conversations where maybe a little bit better than in other games, because everyone has something unique to sort of bring to the table to say, like, why should we be doing this? I'm really good at flipping these switches. Let's make sure I do that on my turn. Or I could be really fast on my turn, so I can do that. And I think that kind of table talk is a really fun part of the game.
How is the replayability factor of the game? How many characters are there in the box to play?
The game comes with 5 characters, and in a 2 to 4 player game, you're only going to see 2 to 4 of those characters. So there's a lot of options there. There's a lot of different combinations of characters. And in terms of the difficulty of the game, there's a lever that you can pull to make the game incrementally harder. Like the nature of the treasures can be, the distribution of the treasures can change in a way that makes that challenge more difficult for more experienced players. Because it isn't easy, and you have to work together, and the professor is pretty nimble. And he's very good at doing exactly what you don't want him to do. Curse the professor. Sometimes he's a bit scatterbrained, but he's surprisingly adept, actually, at foiling your plans. So you have to watch out for him. And the replayability, I guess, comes from all of that storytelling, actually. We always found it very involving. You always saw a little story about the professor. He was a character just as much as you're a character. And I think that's a big difference between our game and other co-op games. The game is the agent that you're working against is present, and he runs about, and he has a life of his own in a way that maybe other co-op games don't have that. So I think that was the bit we always really enjoyed.
Now, just by looking at the two of you, I'm going to, venture a wild guessing here. There is an element of humor in the game. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it has a certain wit, I guess, and life to it. But I think what you see is everything that Funforge gave to it. And they gave it beautiful artwork and a beautiful setting. Our prototype was just black and white paper and characters called A, B, C, D, E. So, I mean, it didn't have any of that life, but it had a very strong foundation for all of that. So I think if there is wit, then it's come from Funforge's brilliance in kind of creating it and seeing what it could be like, and finding the right artist and working and pushing us to make the game better.
So looking at the game in a slightly more serious tone, from what you presented to Funforge to what it is now, what is it that you are the proudest of when you look at the finished product?
I like the experience it's created for players. I think it's a really nice melding of mechanics and theme and setting, which I think a lot of that humor which you talked about, it's allowing players to roleplay in some way, but within this really simple set of rules that really supports that. And I actually think we just really enjoy the game because it's very much more than the sum of mechanisms and setting and theme and art, and it comes together to be this really enjoyable experience. So I think that's the thing I'm most proud of. I don't know.
I agree. I think it is. That's why Funforge is such a good partner for this game. We lucked out. We did really well, and it's great that they saw in it what we saw in it, and they were able to bring that even more to life. I mean, in an incredible way. I mean, so I think that's the experience of play is always going to be a rewarding when it's beautiful components, it's beautiful artwork. There's a world that you can inhabit as a player, and I think that's what's going to draw people in and draw people back. Hopefully,
it's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's always a really tense kind of game, and you can really clearly see how each side is going, and it ebbs and flows, all in a really tight sort of 30 to 45 minute package. So I think that all gets together and gets you involved, which is.
So last question, because you have to go, and we have people waiting here, and they're going to start throwing things at us. Stop it. What lesson have you learned that you're going to bring onto your next game? Because I'm just going to assume that there is going to be a next game, because there must be a next game, and you cannot get away from this now. So what is the biggest lesson you've learned from producing this?
Thinking about how players can inject themselves in the game and having strong characters, even if those characters aren't defined by art or names, but having strong characters defined by what they do is a really powerful thing to have in a game.
I agree with what Matt said.
Guys, thank you so much. Congratulations on the success of the game. I think it's going to do absolutely amazing. And I look forward to the 3 expansions, the 4 stretch goals, and the other 5 games that you're planning on now.